look at anime films as a sort of wonderful double-edged sword. On the one hand, they are shorter than your traditional series, being only about an hour and a half to 2 hours-ish compared to an anime series, which could run anywhere between 5 to 11 hours, depending on episode count. Usually because of this, when you do finish them, you have this feeling of wanting more, of wishing that it could go on, wishing that you could find out what happens next for the story and the characters. Before, of course, you ultimately realize that unless a miracle of miracle happens, you will never get that continuation because sequels rarely happen to animated films, even in the States. Well, at least not any film that doesn't have a crap ton of merchandising behind it. Cars 2. Now, on the other hand, the shorter runtime allows for a higher production quality, meaning that anime films turn out to be some of the most beautiful things that we have ever seen. Examples of this include Redline, every Ghibli movie ever, and of course 5 wallpapers per second. Now, of course, production quality doesn't just include the animation or the music. Unless the film is a remake of an already existing anime series or is a hastily constructed sequel, by and large, the stories are beautiful. If you don't believe me, go watch Grave of Fireflies. You'll never want to watch it more than once, granted, but it's the best example I can give to prove my point. But today we are not looking at Grave of Fireflies or Redline or anything like that. Today, of course, we are looking at the latest anime film to come from Mamoru Hosoda, the director of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Summer Wars. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, Okami Kodomo no Ame to Yuki, or Wolf Children. Let's jam. Wolf Children, by and large, is a full-on truncated version of the initial 14-ish years of two children, Ame and Yuki. These children were born into the world under, well, shall we say, some rather fantastical circumstances. More than that, though, it's also a lot about their mother, Hana, and how she tries to deal with the newborn wolf children on her own, while being constantly afraid for their well-being, because they are both human and wolves. It is an interesting and entertaining conundrum that she is faced with constantly. She can't take her children to the hospital because they are half wolf, but she can't take them to the vet because they are half human. And ultimately, she can't let anyone get close to them or find out what they are in case they want to either kill them or dissect them. Granted, a lot of that worry fades away as the story falls into its setting of their house in the middle of nowhere, miles away from basically anyone and anything. And that worry is replaced with a story more about growing up and how both Ame and Yuki deal with their more animalistic sides. Really, I find the story to be sort of a combination between Hosoda's other two works. In the beginning, there's this heavy focus on the romance between the two parents. And it's not your traditional romance because, well, the guy is a wolf. So in that way, it's quite similar to The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. You just have to take that one half of the relationship as a wolf and swap that out with the time traveler, and then basically everything else is fairly similar. Now, the second half of the film is more like Summer Wars, however. A bit of a coming-of-age tale, but more so a story about family. And of course, both containing a badass grandparent of some kind, whether they actually are related to the main characters or not. But this combination works rather well and is mostly seamless, tied together not by time travel or some computer system, but by a more innate connection between the characters that is as entertaining as it is beautiful. The biggest internal conflict in this film is put upon the children. While it is mitigated by everything else that happens throughout the course of the story, the question begging to be answered the entire time is, should the children be wolves or human? It's a dilemma that I feel was shown very well, with the pluses and minuses being shown very calmly and in some ways quite beautifully over time. And we can see the children learn more about themselves as they grow up and ultimately decide what they want to do with this choice that their mother has given them. Speaking of, Hana is like the biggest trooper mom ever. She gives birth to two children without entering a hospital or employing a midwife, taking care of them without a job, but still able to put food on the table, moving out into the country, and not only rebuilding an abandoned house from the ground up, but also plowing and preparing large stretches of fields from scratch into land that can actually grow something, and not uttering a single complaint about the whole thing. Seriously, I wish I had just even a fraction of the personal fortitude that she has, because it quite frankly is amazing. Also, shout out to Tsundere Grandpa. I realize I already did that earlier, but he's awesome enough to get double mentions. It's not like I wanted to help you or anything, baka. You remember earlier when I said that one half of the Sword anime films is the increased production quality that may or may not be limited to animation? Well, I could just leave it at that and let you see all the soothing imagery that this film has to offer. I could, but I won't. But I could. Now, that is not to say that the imagery of this film is like an orgasm for the eyes, because, well, it's not really. Hosoda's animation style is a lot rougher for the characters, at least than other directors, and the farther away a character is from the camera, the less distinction they get, to the point where, at times, some characters don't even have faces. It's not all bad, though, as one section of the film will clearly show you when that Hosoda is good, he's really good, and his backgrounds and scenery are just very pleasant to look at. On the sound end, the soundtrack was composed by Takagi Masakazu, and well, let me describe it this way. Very few films have a soundtrack that are able to be played without the film there to accompany them. But this, however, is one of those rare ones. It's a soundtrack that you could just kind of have playing in the background after like a long day of working where you just want to sit back and relax, and it has some soothing vocal soundtracks as well to really help that along. Dub-wise, again, I could just sit here and say that it's a Funimation dub and be done with it, as I always wish I could do. But recent experience has taught me that Funimation is not in fact the dubbing gods that we wish they were. And as such, I must be more scrupulous in my examinations. And yes, scrupulous is actually a word. I looked it up. First off, major praise, specifically to Colleen Clinkenbeard, who played Hana. I've said on several occasions that I love it when I actually get to hear her behind the mic, so more of that is definitely a good thing. Secondly, some problems. Well, not exactly problems, but just more so some things that didn't really jive with me as well as I would have hoped. Prefacing beforehand, of course, that this comes from someone who actually watched the Japanese dub before the English dub. There are moments when I get dragged out of the story's immersion because of some of the voices and the attitudes behind them. Okami was one, and Yuki's playful banter as a child was another. Neither, of course, are game changers. Nothing in this dub is bad enough for me to write the whole thing off. Hell, I hope you don't, unless you already have some aversion to dubs of some kind, but I don't think that this particular dub is going to be one of those to convince you that dubs are great if you already think that they're kind of shit and you just don't like them. But, for what it is meant to do, it does its job just fine, and that's really the best we could ask for. Oddly enough, the general complaint that I've seen put against this film is that it has horrible pacing, or that it focuses too much on one aspect of the story and not others. Personally though, I never found either of those two things to really be the case. As far as pacing goes, I thought the film was a masterstroke. There was no point while watching this film that I was just bored or wishing that it would just get on with it. Quite opposite, in fact. I actually want to praise Hosoda for being able to cram so much story into an itty-bitty little space. Every time I finish watching this film, I feel as though 3 or 4 hours have passed, because that's what my mind feels like it has just witnessed. A story that was 3 or 4 hours long. And then I look at the clock and realize, oh no, it was only just under 2 hours. Really? Yeah, really. So the sheer amount of story is amazing, I thought. As far as the story focusing too much on one part of the story and not others, usually referencing the rather large gap in time when we do a fast forward through Ame and Yuki's time at school, well, really, that's like your opinion, man. There was nothing in this film that I would have liked to see cut. None of it. I liked all of it. If you wanted to add to it, to extend it, then sure, by all means. But nothing deserved to be cut. Yes, I would like to see more. Yes, I want to see what happens after the initial 14 years of those kids' lives. But I am also fine with not knowing. What we got was amazing, and I probably wouldn't have it any other way. And so, with all that in mind, I've meticulously calculated values for the categories of story, characters, animation, sound, and my own personal enjoyment, which, after trying my hardest not to mention a moment of implied bestiality, and then, of course, failing, leaves me awarding Wolf Children with an overall score of 9 out of 10, and a rating of certified frosty, a rating only for the best of the best, and those shows too important to ignore. Personally, I found Wolf Children to be the best out of the 4 Hosoda films that I have watched in my life thus far, but at the same time, I feel that he has left it open for a chance for him to make an even better one. which I think is one of the most exciting things for me about this whole thing right now, to be honest, because whatever he comes up with next, I wholeheartedly look forward to it. At the time of this video, Wolf Children is available from Funimation Entertainment on both Blu-ray and DVD. As usual with anime films, the usual suspects of legal streaming sites will not have it. However, Funimation will most likely have it up on American Netflix soon if it is not there already. For alternate anime recommendations, I first point you towards one of Hosoda's other films, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, as a fun and quirky sci-fi romance that started him down the path of awesome sauce directing that he currently follows. Also recommended is the anime series called Usagi Drop, that follows more of a building a family aspect as well as having one of the cutest anime characters in existence. Seriously, go watch it. Between those, you should find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.